Okay, so I decided I would go through and do a different type of video. Again, trying to keep it different here, guys, not just video after haul video. I do love your haul videos, and I obviously post a lot of my own, but trying to have different types of comic videos on this channel if possible. So I thought I would just go through with no real genre of comic in mind, just some comics that I've read recently that I wanted to go into a little bit more detail and showing because I think they're worthwhile. They're comics that I think have absolutely amazing stories. And obviously this one has a great cover too, this Antman cover. But these are the three comics I'll be showing a little bit more detail. I'm not just quickly going through the covers like you see in a lot of my other videos. I'll be going into the actual insides of these books. Yes, believe it or not, people. I feel like some of the comic book collecting community has forgotten that comics also have interiors. Including me. I'm guilty of it too. It's nothing better than a great comic book cover, man, you know? But we need to do these books right, and I'm going to show you why these three books here are honestly amazing for their stories. Fantastic Four Annual number 1, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 27. This is Frank Miller's first work on Daredevil, his first artwork on Daredevil. And Tales to Astonish number 41, a relatively early Antman book that has an amazing story. Okay, let's get into it. I'm just going to let you discover as I go through it. I'm going to let you discover with me the little treasures that are on the inside of these three books. Alright, guys? Here we go. Let's take a look inside. So this is a big, big comic, obviously. 60 some odd pages. I think it's only got about 50 pages or so of story. The rest are a bunch of, well, you'll see what the rest is, but you know, right from the start you're getting this amazing Kirby splash page, and the main story is a Submariner story. Look how simple it was back then. You know, for people who are used to reading modern comics, I've been reading a lot of modern comics lately, looking at the credits. Look how simple the credits are. Boom. Written by, drawn by, inked by, lettered by. That's how simple it should frickin' be, man. You know? Damn. Something so great about simplicity. Well, when simplicity works, at least. He's addressing his subjects of Atlantis. Love early Kirby artwork on the Thing. He didn't reach his full, you know, consistent form as far as the way Kirby liked to draw him until about issue, I want to say like issue 20 or so, maybe like 18. Is the Thing. Look at the artwork there again. He almost looks like a turtle, doesn't he? Crazy. That's the Thing. The Thing and Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, they always, you know, roughhouse, fight, like brothers would, like little brothers would. And the dynamic, of course, is a family of the Fantastic Four, with Sue Storm and Mr. Fantastic as the parents, and the Thing, Ben Grimm, and the Human Torch as the kids, who obviously ruined the room here, and you can see Sue Storm's upset that they ruined the room with their roughhousing. I love the humor and the family dynamic. That's what I like, man. You know, Stan Lee gets a lot of crap because he's kind of sold out lately, but back here in the early days of the Fantastic Four, when he was still, you know, when his work was still relatively pure, was a great, and still is, he still is, let's be honest, guys, still is a great comic writer. And this is him at his best, I would argue. This is the first 50 or so odd issues of the Fantastic Four. Look at the Thing here, man. Dressed in a hoodie, trying to conceal himself. They're on a cruise ship here is what's happening. They're trying to take a vacation is the idea. They're supposed to be taking a break from all the rough times. But as you can imagine, this vacation won't last very long. All of a sudden, Johnny Storm notices something weird happening. Just as you would on any normal cruise, right? You'd see a giant sea serpent. Which of course means something's up, and what is up is the Submariner. If you guys don't know, in the beginning of the Fantastic Four, it's not entirely clear if Sue Storm is going to wind up with Mr. Fantastic or the Submariner. The Submariner is portrayed kind of as a anti-hero, and then as a villain in some parts, and then as a pure hero. And Sue Storm falls in and out of love with him, which is pretty interesting. if you get into that kind of thing like I do. But the Submariner's mom is who he sees right here. And the human and the mermaid, or the woman of Atlantis, end up having a child who is Submariner, half human, half prince of Atlantis, because the woman, I think, was queen of Atlantis. And so it was a huge scandal. His whole birth is a huge scandal, basically, because he's mixed race, which fits in again to what Marvel love to do with their stories, basically having political commentary about racism, sexism, that kind of stuff. You know, stuff that was popular with hippies of the 60s, man. Fighting discrimination. And it made it into a lot of their stories. Alright, time to skip ahead here. Mr. Fantastic fighting Submariner. They did this in the early X-Men books too, I've noticed. Kirby was allowed a lot of creative license, I think is what it was, about what their abilities could do. And he really had fun with the idea for their abilities, like Mr. Fantastic becoming an accordion, or a ball that's bouncing off the walls there, you know. Really hokey kind of stuff, but really fun. You know, just having fun with it, man. You've got these full pinup pages for the major villains from the first, I think, like 14 issues or something of the Fantastic Four. Starting with the Mole Man, of course, issue number 1. They even say when they're from, isn't that cool? You know, from issue number 1, from FF number 2, the Skrulls. And then, of course, some full-page diagrams of question and answers about their different abilities and everything like that. Those are always fun, you know, like how much can the Thing actually lift? Who's stronger, the Hulk or the Thing? That kind of fun stuff. Although the Thing would angrily deny it, we feel the Hulk is actually stronger. No. That is one reason he can take enormous leaps into the air, because of his incredible leg muscles. Okay, good point, good point. But the Thing is more agile, faster moving, and quicker thinking in a fight. That's true. That is true. Fun stuff like that, you know? Diagram of the inside of the Baxter building. How great is this? Have all this stuff in one comic, huh? Wow, this is really cool too, guys. Okay. Let me just read you what it says right here. Alright? It explains the whole thing. This memorable incident, one of the high points in comic magazine history, first occurred in the Amazing Spider-Man #1 in March. It was merely a small 2-page episode which began one of the Spider-Man's greatest adventures. However, we have received countless requests asking us to redo this famous encounter, but to devote more space to it, showing it all in its exciting detail. And so, because you requested it, this is what they do here. They give you a retelling of Spider-Man #1, where he meets the Fantastic Four, and they extend it. How awesome is that, man? How awesome is that, huh? When I saw that, I didn't realize that was in here when I first got this book. I thought it was only Fantastic Four related stuff, and I was excited about that. Because Spidey stuff is so expensive. And to get an early retelling of Spider-Man #1 story is pretty cool, huh? And this is back when Spidey used his web for all sorts of silly things. Like making shields and stuff like that out of his webbing. If you've read any of the early Spideys, it's kind of funny. Yeah, here he's using his web to make a baseball bat to bat away the Human Torch's fireballs. Kind of ridiculous. Oh, and here it is. The origin of the Fantastic Four. They retell the origin of the Fantastic Four, which is amazing. If you can't get FF #1, if you're in that group of people like me. I checked this, and this is actually the same panels, man. The exact same panels and story from the first origin told in FF #1. That's Mr. Fantastic. The first time you see him, he shoots the Fantastic Four into the air. Kind of weird the way they started off the story, but it's true. He shot off a gun that shot the Fantastic Four into the air, which was supposed to summon Sue Storm, who then becomes invisible, you can see. Ben Grimm, because he saw it in the air. They're all basically being told to meet up with Mr. Fantastic. Look at the artwork on the Thing there, huh? Crazy. Look at his eyes. Crazy eyes! Very interesting for me to watch the evolution of artwork on characters that I like.
This is the plot. I'm not even kidding you. They sneak onto a government airbase. This is Mr. Fantastic's plan. They steal a rocket ship. Yeah, because it's that easy, guys. Here they are, stealing the rocket ship. And they get hit by the cosmic rays. And right away, things go wrong. They realize this is not what they expected. Johnny Storm starts to heat up. He doesn't understand what's happening to him. Ben falls on the ground. And all of a sudden, Sue Storm starts turning invisible. But Ben Grimm, all of a sudden, this is where he first transitions from Ben Grimm into the Thing. How cool is that? And he does not like it. Not one bit. And then Mr. Fantastic realizes that he himself has an ability, as Ben tries to attack him out of anger from forcing him, basically, or convincing him to go up with him in space. And now as a result of Mr. Fantastic doing that, they've been hit by the cosmic rays, and Ben's deformed as the Thing, and that's basically the, that's the whole backstory for a lot of the drama in the early Fantastic Four stories. Is the Thing, otherwise known as Ben Grimm, being mad at Mr. Fantastic, and Mr. Fantastic feeling guilty about them winding up with their superpowers because Mr. Fantastic basically was a little bit too proud and a little bit too cavalier with taking them into space for the sake of science. But Stan Lee does love science, and so throughout the rest of the Fantastic Four, he basically tries to make it seem like it was worthwhile, and that science is not evil, but a necessary component to true acts of heroism. How is that for a conclusion on this book, huh, guys? All right, next book coming up. I hope you like what's happening here. This one I got because it's Frank Miller's first work on Daredevil. So let's take a look inside. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number. That's a bad glare, Jesus. 27. All right, let's get to it. Let's get in there. Get to it already. Frank Miller's doing his guest penciling here. You can see that? This is some of Frank Miller's earliest work. There it is. And you can see right from the very start, Frank Miller's starting with a darker version of Daredevil, which is awesome. I love it. He knew what he wanted right from the start. And this story is interesting to me because basically Daredevil, in a Spider-Man comic, Daredevil plays the hero, and Spider-Man plays a little bitch. The story is called The Blind Leading the Blind, as you can see there. And the reason why Spider-Man might look a little bit funny to you is not because Frank Miller can't draw Spider-Man well, which is what I thought at first when I saw his head. It's not that. He's supposed to look ridiculous and sad and crazy because he's blind. And Frank Miller is basically leading him around, and it's a really interesting story because I'll just tell you real quick. I'll show you some of the art here. You can see Frank Miller's earliest work on Daredevil and some of his earliest work, period, actually. Daredevil's leading Spider-Man around here, and it's really interesting because Spider-Man's blind, which puts him at the same level as Daredevil, right? But the difference is that Spider-Man has not been blind his whole life, or most of his life. And Spider-Man is basically being a little whiny bitch the whole time. See? Daredevil's helping him and stuff. Daredevil's catching Spider-Man out of midair. Hey, got you, fellow. Hang tight now. He's basically having to rescue Spider-Man after Spider-Man's making mistakes. I don't want to go into too many details, but it's interesting because Spider-Man, in his own magazine, is basically disabled and is having to deal with something that Daredevil has had to deal with his whole life. You can see they're basically bringing that up here, showing, even his yellow costume, showing back to the early days when he was disabled. And I thought it was interesting because there's a lot of commentary in here about disabilities, which is really what Daredevil was all about in the beginning. Stan Lee said it was one of the main reasons why he liked it, was because he got a lot of positive feedback from the disabled readers, who he was initially worried about offending. So he was really happy to get positive feedback from them, and they liked Daredevil. And this Spider-Man issue is basically more about Daredevil than anything else, which is just great. And I actually got this because of the cover, I'll be honest with you. Not because it had Antman. I'm not a huge Antman fan. I just like this matchbook on the cover, dude. And, I got a good deal on this one, actually, because it's from my local comic shop guy who, I've gotten a lot of stuff from. And I presented a solid argument to him about, what it would cost him to list this thing if you wanted to get what it said it was listing it for on GPA analysis at the time. You know, I convinced him he had it graded at about a full point too high. Lots of different things went into me basically getting about half, or paying almost half of what he was originally asking for this book. So I'm happy about what I paid for it. But that's getting off track. Let's look at the story inside, because I said I would. He's holding his ant costume in his hand. And that's what he uses to change into once he shrinks down to ant size. Kind of funny stuff. You know, little tidbits you wouldn't get from just looking at the cover of this stuff, right, guys? That's the idea, at least. Sorry, I'm going to sit down here. And everybody's always smoking a pipe in these early Marvels, right? Always. The scale that they get to play with the insects that he goes up against, you know? And that's, I think, why the movie is going to be really good. Antman is, aside from the fact that comics are pretty good these days for making good scripts for movies with the superhero plots, there's all sorts of room here for CGI making Ant-Man's story really cool. Really cool. Only thing that Ant-Man, I would say, it lacks on compared to the other Marvel stories is good character build-up. I don't know. You know, Henry Pym's an interesting character, I guess, but compared to like what you get going on in the Fantastic Four with Spider-Man or X-Men, it just doesn't compare in terms of the humor that's in them, or, you know, the human interactions between, you know, romance and friendship, or even the depth of the characters, like the villains and that kind of thing. But it's cool, as you can see with the artwork. There he is, the size of a hand. And I think I'll be quick with this one too. You can see, get into more of this alien stuff. Oh, there's more of my favorite bugs. Look at that. Isn't that cool how they draw those aliens? I don't know why, I just always really liked that. This particular race of, let's call them rhino aliens. Because of that horn they got on their top of their head. They just always look really, like, kind of peaceful but sad at the same time. Like they've suffered through something. I don't know, I'm reading way too far into it. These are freaking aliens in a kid's book, right? Shoot. I don't know, though. Sometimes I look at this and I wonder if this was almost like a diary for Jack Kirby, for what he was going through at the time in his life. You know? It was kind of a place where he could, through metaphor, freely express his opinion about things without any kind of censorship during a time when his opinions might not have been that popular. And this kind of provided an outlet for him, right? I don't know. That's my thinking on it, at least. And then, of course, you get the amazing artwork. Alright, I think that'll about wrap it up here, man. That was the Ant-Man story. The rest is, you know, unrelated stuff. You get 2 or 3 stories in all these TTA books. If you like this different type of video, where I don't just show the covers, or don't just go through a haul, but instead, you know, show you the things I like about some of my favorite stories in these books, and let me know. And I'll try to post more videos like this. Alright? So, later on, let me know what you thought. You know I love those comments. Love them comments. Later on, guys.